Hey, folks, welcome to You're Wrong and You're Ugly, a brand new podcast with me, Sid Rosenberg. Be sure to subscribe and review this podcast. Tell us what you think and leave a 5-star review. Remember to follow me also on Twitter at Sid Rosenberg. You can also watch full videos of all these interviews at WABCRadio.com. Let me tell you about today's guest. Everybody knows A Bronx Tale. You know, A Bronx Tale actually started as a one-man show. Yes, many, many years ago when Chazz Palminteri was a struggling young actor. He wrote that piece after being fired as a bouncer at a nightclub in Los Angeles. And he started doing that show as a one-man show. It took 5 years before Robert De Niro, as he's about to tell you, saw the one-man show and said, hey, let's make this a movie. Since then, you've got the one-man show, you got the successful movie, and a wonderful Broadway musical that lasted over 2 years, led by the genius that is Jerry Zaks. So he's now done this show, A Bronx Tale, 3 different versions between the one-man show, the movie, and the musical. But it's not just A Bronx Tale. If you know Chazz Palminteri's career, it is long. There's other work he's done, incredible work that you may have forgotten. And on top of that, he's become the real go-to guy here in New York City and across the United States as a leader for Italian Americans. Whether it's a Columbus statue by Columbus Circle in New York City or a statue for Mother Cabrini, who actually won a vote for She Built New York City here in New York till it was taken away by the mayor's wife, Charlene McRae. In a move that some called biased, Chazz Palminteri is everybody's favorite Italian-American. So with all that said, here's our guest today, my good friend, Chazz Palminteri. And welcome back, folks, to the second episode of You're Wrong and You're Ugly, our new podcast here at Talk Radio 77 WABC. You laugh. That, of course, is the title of my book, which you didn't read, and neither did most other people, but it's still out there at Amazon.com. And we started this podcast last week. We had the very talented Michael Rappaport here. He's doing very well for himself. But we've got a really special New York guest here today, and not just because of what he's accomplished during his career, which is really second to none, but the fact that over the years he's become a true dear family friend. From his wife Gianna to his 2 lovely children, the Palminteris in the Rosenberg household are family. And with that said, I bring you on this podcast, the great Chazz Palminteri. Good afternoon, Chazz.
Good to be here, Sid.
Nice to have you. You know, I introduce you as Chazz Palminteri. Now, throughout this conversation, I'm going to quote A Bronx Tale a bit.
Okay.
Well, as you know, it's a very quotable movie.
Very quotable.
Very. So one scene during the movie, Robert De Niro, who plays your real dad, Lorenzo.
Yes.
There's an issue with your name. Maybe Sonny calls him Little C, I don't know. And he says, your name is Calogero. That was your grandfather's name?
Yes.
Okay. So then why am I introducing you as Chazz Palminteri?
Well, that's a good point.
It's a good point, right?
No, you know, you're growing up in a neighborhood. When anybody who hears the name Calogero, it's like, what? Calogero? Nobody could ever say it right. So, you know, it's actually Calogero is Charles in England, in America.
It is.
Same thing, Calogero. But anybody named Calogero is Sicilian.
Is that a popular name back in Sicily?
Oh, my God, yeah.
Very popular.
There's Calogera. There's an A with an A. That's a woman.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so you could do both. Calogero, Calogera.
Okay. So it's popular in Sicily.
Sicily.
Not necessarily popular in the Belmont section of the Bronx.
No. I met a few.
Is that right?
Yeah, yes. Yes, I met a few.
So the character in the movie that De Niro plays, Lorenzo,
yes.
When you look back and we see it in the movie, that was a real accurate depiction of who your father was?
Oh, yeah. In fact, De Niro said, I want to hang out with your father for a month. So De Niro and my father would go out, and my father taught him how to drive a bus and how, how my father was with the passengers. And I used to tell Bob, I said, Bob, you don't have to do all this. You know, nobody really knows my father. Right. When you play a famous person, you have to do that. But nobody knows my dad. He goes, no, I want to do it. And wow, he really did it exactly like my dad. No,
now listen, one of the quotes in the movie means a lot to me. Now, I don't usually talk about myself during these podcasts. It's about you. You're the star. I'm not the star. But about a decade ago, when I was having a very difficult time with my career,
yes.
And I went to see you do your one-man show in Pompano Beach, Florida. And I saw you after the show, behind stage. And you said to me, wasted talent. I get choked up. I never forgot that. And over the last 10 years, as you have seen, witnessed to, my career has gone big again, like it was before that.
Absolutely.
So that line,
Yeah.
what it meant to me, to a lot of people, meant a lot. Do you realize when you said that line how important it was?
I realized, well, because when I meet someone who has immense amount of talent, like you have, and, you know, look, we all make mistakes. We all do dumb things. I've done it like everyone else. But the idea is like not to do it again and to realize that you have the talent inside of you. So all I was just saying is, come on, Sid, you know, waste the talent, man. You have too much of it. It's going to be all right. You're going to be back. You'll see. And, you know, look, obviously, you know, the cream always rises to the top.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I always say that.
Well, I'm amazed by the whole story of A Bronx Tale. And look, I want people to be careful. A Bronx Tale is your biggest work.
Yes.
But you've done a ton of other great stuff. Analyze This with Billy Crystal.
Yeah.
Your reoccurring role on Modern Family.
Yes.
Your Best Supporting Actor for a nomination for Bullets Over Broadway.
Right.
You've done Usual Suspects.
Right.
You've done a ton of great stuff. But certainly your signature work is A
I would
Bronx
say
Tale.
people don't realize that I've been a playwright. One of my other plays called Fateful has been done much more than Bronx Tale. It's been done in 18 different languages.
Is that right?
Yeah, all over the world. You know, that was a movie. That was a play. Then it became a movie. And the play has been done, like I said, 18 countries. A Bronx Tale has only been done I just gave the rights in France.
Right.
So, and then I'm going to give it soon in Italy. But I keep the North American rights here. So
I think it's funny the way thing happened. So you're kind of struggling, right? You're a teenage kid, and you're doing some off-Broadway shows, and you're a bouncer. You
Yes.
still got some muscle, by the way, Chazz.
Well, thanks.
You and, for Rocky IV fans out there, Dolph Lundgren.
Dolph Lundgren, yes.
Yes.
Yes. I was
Drago.
working there, and Dolph came on, and him and I were the doorman and the bouncers, yes.
So you and him are bouncing together. You eventually get fired from a club because I guess you didn't let Swifty Lazar in or something?
Swifty Lazar, not at that club. It was the club in Beverly Hills.
Okay.
I went to Beverly Hills. I was the actor there, and I ran out of money again, so I started working I said, well, I know how to bounce. I know how to work a door. So I got a job as a doorman, and one day, all of a sudden, look, there's 3 things you can never do to a doorman. If you do one of these 3 things, you'll never get into a nightclub.
Okay.
First thing is you never say the words, do you know who I am? You say
Reese
that.
Witherspoon did that once when she got arrested. Okay.
You can't get it.
All right.
The second thing is you never touch the rope.
Don't do that.
And the third thing is you never get in the doorman's face. You break his space. And this guy, all of a sudden, I'm standing by the thing. He comes over to me, grabs the rope, gets in my face and says, do you know who I am? You're keeping me waiting. And I said, yes, I know who you are. You're the guy who's not getting in tonight.
Oh, my God.
And he said, you will be fired in 15 minutes. And I said, get online. Everybody says that. And 15 minutes later, I was fired. Just like he said.
But if you knew who he was.
I didn't know who he was. And then I find out it was Swifty Lazar, and it was his party that I was keeping him out of. And he was late, so that's why he grabbed the rope. And I got fired. I went home. I sat at the edge of my bed. I said, what am I going to do with my life? And then I looked on the refrigerator, and there was my father's card there that said, the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. And I said, well, you know what? I'm not going back to New York. If they won't give me a great part, I'll write one myself.
Wow.
I went to Thrifty Drugstore, and I got 5 tabs of yellow paper, the long legal paper. And I said, well, what do I write about? I write about the killing that I saw when I was 9 years old. And I wrote about that. I performed it for my workshop. All of a sudden, they loved it. I did a 5-minute monologue. And then each week I would write 10 minutes, 15 minutes, come back with, and out of that I would take 4 minutes, 3 minutes. I workshopped it. And at the end of almost a year, I had 90 minutes of this 1-minute show where I did the whole movie on stage by myself. And I borrowed money off one of my friends who lent me money. And the next minute, my life I did the play and it exploded. It became the hottest property in the world. Every actor, writer, director, producer, studio head wanted it, but they didn't want me. They wanted to put a star in the role. And they wanted someone else to write it. They wanted my story when they saw it. And I said no. And in Hollywood, you say no. They say, oh, he means he wants more money. So they offered me $250,000. I had $200 in the bank. I said no again. They offered me $500,000, and I said, hey, I want to play Sonny. I want to write the screenplay. No. Then they offered me $1 million.
Wow.
And I said, look, I have to play Sonny. I have to write the screenplay. And the guy looked at me and said, the studio head said, look, he goes, you realize this movie won't get made. And I said, you're right, it won't, with you.
Oh.
And he looked at me, he said, really? I said, yes. And he goes, what makes you so sure? I said, because it's too, I can curse right here?
Yeah.
I said, because it's too fucking good.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, somebody will do it. And he said, I wish you well. And I walked out the door. And 2 weeks later, I was doing the show at a standing ovation, packed house, and I got upstage, and a guy walked over to me and said, Robert De Niro's in your dressing room. He just saw the show.
Robert De Niro's in the dressing room?
In the dressing room.
Now, you didn't know Robert De Niro at that point?
I didn't know him at all.
Okay.
I walked into the dressing room, and there was De Niro, And I said, hey, how you doing? And he said, he's like, yeah. You know how he is. He said, oh, the show was great. I said, that was a great, man, that was a great show. He goes, you did a movie. I said, yeah. And we talked, and he said, if you sell it, they're going to come back to me. I said, I know, Bob, but I'm not selling it. I said, I want to play Sonny, and I want to write the screenplay. And he said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Chazz. You should play Sonny because you'll be great, and you should write it because it's your life. I'll play your father, I'll direct it, and we'll go partners, and that's how it'll be.
Wow.
And that's what happened.
Well, the play, I guess, you wrote in 1988 during that time.
Yeah, 88, 89.
And they made the movie in 1993.
Yes.
Right, so it took 5 years, and it became a movie.
Yeah.
Take us back to those days, a movie, you say you witnessed a murder, which you did.
Yeah.
And the movie goes on to depict a young man who really falls in love with this mob head who you play brilliantly, Sonny, while his dad is that everyday guy driving the bus,
right,
who really was the hero in the end. And
yes,
then maybe even the bigger piece of the movie has a white Italian kid,
right,
falling in love with a black girl.
Yes.
You want to talk about taboo. Holy shit.
Right.
So take us back to those days in the Beaumont section.
As far as the black girl goes, this is 1968. 1968, Robert Kennedy got assassinated. Martin Luther King got assassinated. It was nuts in this Italian neighborhood. And I was dating this black girl, okay? And people go, oh, that's De Niro's story. For the record, everybody, no, it wasn't. It was my story. Everybody goes, oh, De Niro, that's Bob's story. I said, no, Bob dated
He does like the black women, Bob De Niro.
Dated many black women.
Right.
But he's not the only one in the world who ever did it. I did it, too. Okay, and I want to correct the nation for that.
That's your story. Right.
It's my story.
Yeah.
And my friends who were with me my whole life will verify that. So, and it was a tough thing to do, but I would always put it aside and hide it, of course, and she would hide me from her neighborhood.
Sure.
Because we couldn't be together. But we really cared about each other. But it wasn't like, we were 17, 18. It wasn't like love. We were crazy about each other, but I thought that incident meant a lot to me, and that's why I put it in the movie, because I always want to talk about racism. And my father taught me that, that people are people. Black, white, Jewish, Italian, Irish loved my father.
Well, he taught you that, but I don't remember from the movie, your mom and dad never knew about that.
They never knew.
So if he thought that way, why were you so scared to tell him?
Well, because, just like an Italian parents are, they accepting with everybody, but
until it's theirs.
When it's theirs. And still he wasn't, you're absolutely right. And then it's theirs, he wasn't like, well, wait a second. I knew what he meant. He didn't want me to go through what I was about to go through. He thought it was just easier for me to date a white woman. And I said, he goes, well, look, I'm not prejudiced. I said, what do you mean you're not prejudiced? I said, if you say those things, then you are. He said, no, I just don't want you to go through that bullshit. I said, I understand that, Dad, but you can't have it both ways here. You teach me one way, and then you want something else.
Right.
And that's why Bronx Tale has so many lessons to learn. Sonny and my father would say the same thing to me. Stay in school, go to college, make something out of your life. Sonny said the same thing. Sonny didn't want me to be a gangster, didn't want me to get involved with that stuff. But the thing that made Bronx Tale so unique was that they both said the same thing. It wasn't black against white, good against evil. It was gray against gray.
Right.
So the boy took the best of the father, the best of Sonny, and became a man.
I've got a friend. His name is Joe Tacopina. I know you know who Joseph is.
Yeah.
He's one of the best defense attorneys in the country. And he's a very proud Italian-American. He hated The Sopranos. He doesn't like The Godfather.
Right.
He doesn't like any mob movies that depict Italians in that fashion.
Yeah,
Now,
I disagree with that, but it's
I know
okay.
that. You were in studio last week, and I said, oh, Chazz is here. I said, well, he's different. I love Chazz. He was actually, just chickening out. But I know you don't, because in terms of people who are proud of their heritage, all the work you've done with your friend Phil Folia, Columbus Day, Mother Cabrini, you're the proudest Italian-American I know, and you played mobsters a million times.
A lot, yes.
Right. So it doesn't bother you that your people get kind of labeled that stereotype?
I think some of my people feel that way, and I feel they're wrong. And that's my right to feel that way, and if they feel I'm wrong, what I say to them is kindly, I totally understand, don't watch the movie.
Right.
No, but this is what I do. I am an actor.
Right.
I am an actor. Okay? I am a writer. And look at Bronx Tale. Yes, do I play a mobster in Bronx Tale? Yes. But do you know Bronx Tale, Sid, is in one of the great books, The Moral Intelligence of Children? The positive things about Bronx Tale. You cannot say something, you cannot teach someone unless you say the negative first.
True.
And I enjoyed Sopranos. I really liked it. I thought it was a very well-written movie. And because I saw it, and you saw how these people were as human beings. Were all Italians like that? Of course not. But you learn from the darkness. You cannot have the light until you have the darkness.
Sure. I agree.
If I make a movie of just Italian Americans who just say great things about each other, nobody's going to watch it.
I am with you. Listen,
something has to be entertainment.
Sure. But you did play one role. And it's interesting because just this week I read something in the New York Post from Sammy the Bull Gravano, who continues to talk about John Gotti when he really shouldn't. I've had enough of that guy. But you did play the man that John Gotti killed, Paul Castellano, in Boss of Bosses. So you played a real-life guy who was one of the more historical figures in the history of La Cosa Nostra.
Yeah, I mean, look, I never condone what any mobster does. They're bad guys. They're bad people. Okay, but they're still human. Sonny was a bad guy, tough guy.
Was he?
He was a tough guy.
Was he a bad guy? I'll give you an example.
If you crossed him, you were a bad guy.
But I'll give you an example. People tell me, Chazz, that pit bulls, they're not really bad dogs. It's how you raise them.
Yes.
If Sonny drove a bus and Lorenzo was Sonny, wouldn't Sonny be Lorenzo?
It could have been. Absolutely. I always say that. If they switched roles, they could have been different. I don't know if my father had that in him, but if he was grown up that way, Sonny was abandoned, he didn't have a wife. It's a different thing. It's a different life. Sonny used to say, don't do what I do. Don't do what I do. Do what I say. And my father, my father had a great mother and father. He grew up a good boy, a good man.
Yeah.
And my father taught me to be a good man. And I teach my children to be good men.
Oh, you're a tremendous father. I know your wife and your children. In fact, your wife told me a story that we're going to get to in just a moment.
Yeah.
One of the lines I've already talked about is wasted talent.
Right.
Here's the next one. And my producer, Jill, says this is the one that you hear the most. In fact, you've got a very funny story about a pilot on an airplane. And that is, now you can't leave.
Now you can't leave. Every time I get on a plane, as soon as they shut that big door, if they know I'm on the plane, I hear the pilot go over the thing. He goes through the whole thing and he goes, and ladies and gentlemen, I just have something to say. Now you can't leave. And I go, and I laugh because I go, oh, here it comes.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
When you hear that, that's
funny. Yeah.
It is funny. Yes. Now, again, when you're doing that scene and you're beating up the bikers and that line is said, you have no idea at that time that's going to become one of the more iconic lines in the history of cinema.
I have no idea.
No idea. Okay.
I hear that. I hear, is it better to be loved or feared? I hear people yelling, throw him in the bathroom.
What is the answer? Is it better to be loved or feared?
I think if you're Sonny, it's better to be feared. If you're a good person like my father or myself, it's better to be loved.
Well, what if I told you that with my wife, it's both? And what if I told you with your wife, for you, it's both?
A little fear is good.
A little fear is good. Keeps us in line. Yes. So the other line in that movie that I love is the whole Mickey Mantle thing. He doesn't care about you. So I put this David Cohn book on the table here, not because David's here, you're here, thank God, but because it's a picture of David in a Yankee uniform. And one of the things people identify you with, besides the Bronx Tale, is the New York Yankees.
Yes.
You're the biggest Yankee fan in the city.
Yes.
Now, unfortunately, your team just suffered a tough loss to the Houston Astros.
Yes.
Here's where Gianna Palminteri comes into the story. So I say, Gianna, give me something about Chazz that people don't know. Okay? You nervous?
I don't know, but I think I know where you're going. Go ahead.
She said, well, first of all, good job. You're doing your homework. She said, secondly, here's what my husband does. During the series against the Astros, he was so nervous to watch the game that he would sit by himself in the pantry.
Yes.
And he wouldn't come out until somebody told him the Yankees scored a run. Is there any truth to this?
Yes, it's absolute total truth to that. I was in the pantry when Boone hit the home run to beat the Red Sox.
This is like put the guy in the bathroom. You're in the pantry.
Well, you know what it is? Because I have this, I have a screening room in my house and I watch the game there. Every game starts out like that. It's loud, it's bright. I'm sitting there. I'm so excited. And then as it gets towards the later innings, first thing I do is I shut the sound off. Now I'm watching it with no sound.
Right.
I can't. The sound's too much. I can't take it. Then I go all the way in the back of the screening room. I sit all the way in the back there and I'm looking at it like this. Then when it gets really bad, I get out of the screening room. I go into the kitchen. On my hand to God, on my mother and father, if I'm lying to you. I go into the kitchen, I watch it on my 13-inch screen.
Right.
And I sit there like this. Then I could do the same thing. It gets really bad, 8th, 9th innings, sound goes off. Now it's getting really bad. When Boone was extra innings with the Yankees, and Boston, into the pantry, and I shut the door and I look through the little thing like this. And I'm watching, and as soon as Boone hit the home run.
Well, I mean, this, that was a big home run over Tim Wakefield.
Yeah.
This sounds like torture for you.
Yes.
But it's fun. You're enjoying it. It's like S&M, basically.
Yeah, Sid, listen to me. I watched Encore the next day. I know what happens, and I still get upset.
Not after a loss, though.
No, only a win.
Oh, okay, good.
I won't watch the losses.
Right.
But I know what's happening. It's a repeat, and I'm still upset.
You still watch it. Well, does this go back? I remember you and your father in the movie, Lorenzo, going to the fights.
Yes.
Right? And I remember you guys sitting way upstairs, and there's Sonny downstairs with Frank Sinatra and the rest of those guys. I don't remember you guys ever ending up at Yankee Stadium. Did the love of the Yankees start with your dad back in the Bronx?
My dad took me when I was 4 years old. He took me. I remember he's holding my hand. And he brought me into the tunnel when you walk through the tunnel in Yankee Stadium. And you go there and you see the green. And I was like, wow.
Remember the smell, Chazz? You smell
the grass.
Right? Oh.
And he said, son, the greatest players in the world play. You're going to see the greatest players in the world there. Oh. And, he got me so excited. And I just grew up going and constantly going to the Yankee games. And we used to wait. And I got that idea about the boxing. And my father did take me to fights because he was a professional trainer, besides being a bus driver. When we would sit way up on the top, behind home plate, all the way on the top. And we would watch. And to me, I was like in heaven. And then when obviously years later, we never got a ball up there. No ball can come up that high.
No. Not even Reggie.
Not even Reggie. Not even the Mick would do that.
Right.
So then years later, when I became famous and I would go to the games, they would put me in the box seats. For years I did this and I never told anybody. I would get a baseball because the guys would always give me a baseball. Sure. They would say, hey, Chazz, there's a couple of balls for your kids. I would go upstairs to the top deck where my father and I used to sit, and I would see a father there. Now you see, you get me up. I would see a father there with a child, with a boy, a son, or his daughter, and I would walk over to them and I would say, tell them I'm going to come over so they don't get nervous. And somebody would tell them, and I would walk over, and the guy would say, oh, hi. And I would say, hey, I do. I used to sit here with my dad right up here. Geez. I said, I want to give this ball to your son, and I'm going to sign it for him. And I would sign it, and his son would be like, they would be, and I did this for years.
Yeah.
I never said nothing. Then my good friend Ray Nerone and Charlie Santoro of the Yankees, they said, Chazz, we gotta put this on tape. And I said, I really don't want. They said, no, and they were the ones who made me do it. And then when I do it, I go up there and when I'm at the game, I go up there.
It's such a beautiful story. And I know how close you are with Dante, your son. You know how close I am with Gabriel, my son. I'd love to hear stories like that. I wonder. And again, I think for most people, they have to judge you by the movie. That they don't know you personally. And when you see the movie, you feel like young C loves Sonny more than his own father. Now, at the end of the movie, you kind of get the life lesson that the father was a good guy. But I'm still not sure at the end of the movie who you really love more. I know now who you love more, but what point of your life do you say to yourself, oh, man, I really miss my dad.
Yeah. You know, I always tell people, you know, as any writer, as any dramatist, you always embellish the truth. That's why I always say Bronx Tale is semi-autobiographical. You know, it's not a documentary of my life. There's things you embellish. I'll give you an example. When I saw the killing, I never went down and witnessed and looked at everybody. What happened was the cops came up. They wanted me to come down. I said, no, I'm not going. And I said, I didn't see anything. My father kept saying, he didn't see nothing. And I said, I didn't see anything. And the cop, he said, you didn't see nothing. I said, no. But then as a writer, years later, I said, wait, I'm going to put us in a thing.
Sure.
Right. But getting back to my father, Sonny never pulled me out of the car. What happened was...
Oh, is that right? He didn't save your life?
In real life. No, in real life was, I got in the car, and I smelled the gasoline, and I saw everything, and I went, I can't hurt my father. I remember saying that.
Oh.
I can't hurt my mother and father. And I said, no. And I got out, and then the car left, and then I saw Sonny.
So if you ever think about if that was in the movie, now again, Sonny dies after that, you're standing by the coffin, so it made sense. But even if you had written the movie the way it really happened, it still would have been emotional and good.
Emotional, but I thought it was more emotional if Sonny pulled me out of the car.
I understand that.
Because I knew the payoff, the playback, they call it the payback at the end when I see him at the coffin.
Yeah.
When I say to him, I'm sorry you saved my life.
Yeah.
But in reality, he did save my life in a lot of ways, by not pulling me out of the car, but by always telling me, hey, do the right thing. Stop with these guys. Don't go here, don't go there. So he did, in a way. I just made it more dramatic.
That was quite a scene, by the way, for folks who don't remember. At the very end of that movie, in that funeral parlor was you. You were, thank God, dead in the movie, not in real life, because I love you to death. And Robert De Niro walks in, and there's Joe Pesci. He's the last person we see standing by the coffin. He was great in that role. You know, we talked earlier about kind of your civic responsibility now.
Yes.
And you've taken this on, you and your friend Phil Folio, who's in the audience. You can't see him, but he's out there. He's a great guy. And you guys, a couple of years ago, were very upset about the possibility of the Columbus statue being removed. This year we had another controversy where the mayor's wife, Charlene McRae, did not honor a vote, a legitimate vote, where Mother Cabrini won the She Built New York City competition. And instead she decided to give it to an African-American person. You were on the show with Bernie and I. I said some things. Unfortunately, you agreed. Next thing you know, you're on the radio with Mayor de Blasio explaining yourself. But beyond all that...
And again, to clarify that, I was wrong by using, when you said, is it racism? And I said,
I said it. You didn't say it.
No, but I did agree with you.
Well, I was right.
I'm a man. I man up to what I said. I said, well, sure sounds like it. And again, but thinking about it, I did apologize to the mayor's wife, and I felt good by that. But racism was not the right word, and I was wrong. But it's bias.
It is bias.
If anything, it is bias. So please, I'm sorry, it is bias. And again, I'm not saying don't give it to there's like they gave it to 7 women. And it's got nothing to do with whether you're African American, there's 1 white woman on it too. It wasn't about that.
1 out of 7. But
1 out of 7. But that's okay. But the woman who got the most votes, who was the most popular, she doesn't make the first 7?
No.
That's an injustice. It's an injustice.
Well, Bill de Blasio has promised you the second time around that Mother Cabrini, and Governor Cuomo said you're getting a statue now.
Yeah, Governor Cuomo came in and straightened the whole thing right out. Okay, thank God. But I don't care. But again, I'll say to the mayor, there was never going to be a second round. They said that because we've made a big stink. Let's be honest. He tells me to man up and admit it, and I will man up, but you have to admit it too, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry. Out of the 7, she doesn't make it. Why? Give me an explanation. What are the reasons? She's Catholic? Is she Catholic? She's Italian American? I'm sorry.
Have you gotten an explanation yet?
Never got an explanation.
Nothing.
But you know what? I agree with Governor Cuomo. I'm not here to find out an explanation. I'm just here to fix what's wrong. And you know what? I agree with him. I don't want even an explanation anymore. Let's just make it right. She deserves to be one of the 7. That's all I ask. Anybody who knows me I always say to you, Sid, I talk the talk, but I walk the walk. I go down to the communities in the Bronx, okay, the minority communities, and I speak to those young kids. I've spoken to many high schools there. I've been to the juvenile prisons. I don't say nothing to nobody. It's never been on the air. I speak to those kids there, and I tell them the saddest thing in life is wasted talent.
That's right.
No one could ever accuse me of being a racist.
No.
Ever.
No.
Because I walk the walk and I talk the talk. Okay? Was I wrong to say it in that incident? Yes. I apologize. But it was an injustice.
Okay, let's wrap it up where we started this thing, the whole acting career. And we talked about some of your other work you've done besides A Bronx Tale. I thought Usual Suspects is one of the best movies ever.
Yeah.
Kaiser Soze, and just an unbelievable movie. And analyze this. You had the chance to work with Billy Crystal.
Yeah.
Another big sports fan. What kind of guy is Billy Crystal?
Billy's a great guy.
Is he a great guy?
Great guy and very funny all the time.
You know, I used one of his lines, Mr. Saturday Night, with him and David Paymer. Whenever Billy would tell a joke, he'd say, see what he did there? I stole that, and I still use it. I never give Billy credit, but it's a brilliant line, isn't it?
Everybody steals. That's okay.
Of course. But those Analyze This movies were great, and what it showed is you're not just a stereotypical mobster guy.
Right.
You're very funny, which, of course, led to the role as Shorty with Ed O'Neill and Sophia Viagra.
I mean, I started out as doing funny. I was working with the New York Comedy Plays. I started out being funny, but I got famous for these heavy-duty characters. But I always wanted to be funny. I mean, I got the opportunity to be funny in Bullets Over Broadway, and it led to a nomination.
You were brilliant in that.
Well,
brilliant.
Thank you.
That's a great movie. Woody Allen.
Woody Allen.
John Cusack and Diane Weiss. It's a great cast. You know, one other thing about you that I got to give you credit for. One of your best friends is Bob De Niro, because you're friends. To me, he's Robert. To you, he's Bob.
Yeah.
And Robert has a habit lately, and I would tell him not to do this. He won't listen to me. But he gets crazy over the political.
Yeah.
He gets crazy.
Yeah.
I know who you like, who you don't like, because we're very good friends.
Right.
Nobody else does. So, which is smart, because why would you want a certain percentage of your audience not to see your work if, in fact, they are caught up in this political climate?
Well, you know, no, I do believe what Bob is doing is right. For him, that's right. I mean, he has a passion and he has a belief. And everybody who knows Bob, you know, when Bob believes in something, boy, you are not stopping him. You know, but, and I always tell people, I am not a Democrat. I am not a Republican. I did not vote for Donald Trump. I did not vote for Hillary Clinton. I'm an independent, and I vote on the common sense issues of who I think. And I keep that privately to myself. But I always say, Bob has the right to do whatever he wants. I mean, and if he believes that, I say, man, you go for it.
Sure.
And you shouldn't. See, that's the problem with politics. It divides people. It divides families, Sid. I've seen people get literally divorced over it.
I won't talk to my sister.
I know people
ever.
who don't talk to their siblings because of politics. What happened to when people could just disagree but still be friends? What happened to that?
All of society.
I know, but I hope that changes one day.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because we'll end it with this then. Here sitting in front of me is Chazz Palminteri, great actor, and more importantly, a great guy. When it's all said and done, and you and Gianna go to California and you hang it up, no more one-man shows, which you still do, Paramount Theater, Vegas, all over the place. No more starring roles on sitcoms. You're sitting by the beach.
Right.
And it's all said and done.
Right.
And that very first op-ed piece, that bio piece comes out in the New York Times, the Washington Times, about Chazz Palminteri. What do you want it to say?
I wanted to say he was a good man, a good father, who didn't waste his talent. You know, that's all.
That's it. That's all you have to say.
That's all you have to say. A good man. That's my father always said. He goes, "What you have," and my friend Phil Folia, we used to talk about it. And Phil would always say to me, "You know, what do you have in the end but your word? You know, that's it." You know, when I used to...
man, your father must be so proud of you looking down right now. He's got to be so proud.
My dad was a great, great man. He really was. He was... and I'll tell you this last story, Sid. People always go, "Bob, you sound like you had the greatest parents." And I said, well, I'm going to tell you how great my parents were. When I was an out-of-work actor, and I was bouncing in New York, and trying to go to acting school in the day. And I would, my parents lived on top, and I lived on the bottom apartment. I would go upstairs and I would write. Dad, could I have $25 if I'm short money? And I would put it underneath the door. And the next morning, I wake up, there'd be an envelope with $25 in it.
Oh.
And that went on for like 6 months. And then finally, I got a part in a little play, and I started working more as a bouncer, and I did okay. Cut to 25 years later, I'm nominated for Academy Award. 25 years later, Sid. I'm in the limo going down with my wife, who's 8 months pregnant with Dante, and my mother and father in the limo with me. I said, You're going to walk down the red carpet with me, I told them.
Wow.
Well, okay, we're in the limo. We're about the third car about to get out. And my father turns to my mother and says, should we give it to him? My mother says, yeah, give it to him now. My father puts his hand in his pocket and takes out 5x7 index cards, a whole stack of them. And he goes, here, these are for you. And I'm like, what? And I look at the index cards, and I see $10, Dad, lend me $20, $30.
Oh, my God.
And I go, these are the cards that I used to give you when I was 25 years ago.
Oh, my God.
And my father said, yeah, me and your mother saved these cards because we knew this day was going to come. And we said, we'll give it to him when he gets nominated.
Oh, you made me cry.
No. What kind of people are these?
Oh.
That when I was this kid, giving them cards, they're saving them? Saying, well, when he gets nominated, we'll show him these cards. That's the belief they had in their son. And that's why, more than Sonny, more than anybody who ever gave me any break, that's why I'm here today, because of them.
Well, thank you. Unbelievable, Chazz.
Okay.
That's Chazz Palminteri, everybody, and that's why we love him. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of You're Wrong and You're Ugly. Make sure to click that subscribe button wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and look out for new episodes every Thursday morning. Till then, I'm Sid Rosenberg, and don't forget, you're wrong and you're ugly.